He was the son of dawn, brilliant, faithful, disciplined. He built a life others only dreamed of. PhD before his peers, 4 children, all sent abroad. A woman he loved with entire heart. But now, at 70 plus, he stands in his kitchen, cooking eba, alone. She, the woman he built with, left for childbirth 3 years ago and never came back home. He is still in love. They all sent gifts, messages, but the laughter has died. If loyalty and goodness were enough, why is his heart broken in silence? This is the lonely end of a good man. Stay with me while we unravel a story of love, betrayal, sacrifice, and the cost of doing everything right. In the quiet town of Ilesami, young Adekunle rose before dawn to the sound of roosters and rustling palm leaves. His mother, Mama Tola, often said, "The child who greets the sun will dine with kings." And so, Adekunle read by lantern light while others slept. His brilliance earned him a scholarship to the university in Ibadan, where he graduated top of his class. He was the pride of his village, the proof that hard work could lift a man above his beginnings. When he returned, he didn't chase fame or wealth, he taught. He wore clean white shirts and brown leather shoes, carried chalk like a priest carries his Bible. The elders nodded when he passed, calling him Prof, even before he earned the title. In him, the community saw hope, the boy who made good. None imagined how quietly tragedy would one day enter his perfect story. In the same town lived Abike, a soft-spoken girl with eyes that smiled even before her lips moved. She sold puff-puff by the roadside, her laughter floating over the market noise. Adekunle saw her often, but never spoke, until one day, under the mango tree, their eyes met like sunrise touching water. He helped her gather spilled puff-puff, and she teased, "Professor, do you also sell snacks?" That laughter began a friendship that grew into love. Their courtship was simple, letters written by hand, moonlit walks after evening prayers, promises whispered under the almond tree. When they finally married, the whole village danced. The talking drums sang their names. Even the wind seemed to bless them. Everyone said, "Abike is lucky. Adekunle is a good man." But love stories, no matter how pure, are never safe from time and change. Their home became a small university of values. Abike's cooking filled the compound with peppery stew and the sense of palm oil. Adekunle's books lined every wall, and their children grew up reciting proverbs before bedtime. "A child who knows his father's footsteps will never be lost," he would say. Abike balanced motherhood with grace, and laughter filled the rooms like morning sunlight. Every Sunday, they sat side by side in church, a picture of discipline and devotion. Neighbors envied them, not for riches, but for peace. In the evenings, Adekunle helped with homework. Abike braided hair, and crickets sang in the background. Yet, beneath all the beauty, life was quietly teaching them a dangerous lesson, that even the strongest love, if left unwatered, can dry like harmattan leaves. The years rolled by like dry corn in a mortar. Their 4 children, Tola, Kumbi, Femi, and Sade, grew like palm trees reaching for the sky. One by one, they left for universities abroad, carried by dreams Adekunle had built with chalk-stained hands. He sold land, postponed comfort, and buried desires so his children could fly. "Let them see the world," he said, proud but trembling. When the last one left, The compound grew quieter than a shrine at midnight. Abike cried secretly for weeks, while Adekunle sat in the veranda pretending to read. The laughter was gone, replaced by echoes. But he consoled her. We planted trees. Now we must wait for their shade. He didn't know that the shade he longed for would fall in foreign lands, leaving his own roots cold. Letters became emails. Emails became brief calls. Birthdays became group chats. The children, now citizens of faraway countries, sent money and gifts. But time, not distance, became the real thief. Abike began spending long hours staring at her phone, smiling at video calls that never included Adekunle. He would wave from behind, but she would say, "Not now, dear, the baby's crying." At night, she would scroll through pictures, laughing softly at memories of grandchildren she had never held. Adekunle tried to join in, but his words felt like interruptions. Slowly, he withdrew into his study, surrounded by degrees and certificates that couldn't hug him. Love, once a river, had become a trickle. Yet, he kept believing. Loyalty, he thought, would eventually bring everyone home. One morning, Abike announced, "Tola is due next month. I'll go and help her deliver." Adekunle smiled, proud and trusting. "Go, my dear, the house will wait for you." He carried her bags himself to the waiting taxi, waving until the dust swallowed it. He didn't know that he was waving goodbye to the last piece of his companionship. Weeks turned to months, months turned to years. The first year, she said, "I'll stay a little longer." The second, she said, "It's easier here." The third, she stopped saying much at all. Now, her love arrived only as digital messages. Her laughter, a ringtone. In group calls, she smiled from another time zone. And Adekunle, good, faithful, hopeful, kept the kitchen warm, waiting for footsteps that would never return.
At 70, Adekunle became a ghost inside his own house. His colleagues celebrated him with plaques and speeches, but no one saw him eat alone. He cooked his own eba, measured the gari with quiet precision, and hummed hymns to fill the air. The once busy living room now echoed like an empty lecture hall. The neighbors respected him, but avoided him. His quietness made them uneasy. The church youth called him Baba Discipline, never Baba Joy. Each evening, he sat under the almond tree, where he once held Abike's hand, watching the shadows lengthen like regrets. He never cursed her, never complained. He just existed, faithful to a love that no longer lived here. One December afternoon, the compound gates creaked open. It was Kumbi, the second son, home for 2 weeks. Adekunle's heart leapt. At last, laughter again. But Kumbi came with the speed of the modern world, phone in hand, plans in head, heart elsewhere. He filmed TikToks in the sitting room, laughed with friends online, and called his father legend, but never sat to listen. On the last day, he hugged Adekunle and said, "You're a great man, Dad." Adekunle smiled faintly. After the car left, the silence that returned was heavier than before. He whispered, "Even the echo has left." That night, he ate cold eba and slept beside a picture frame. Love had become memory's echo. Sometimes, regret doesn't shout. It whispers through ordinary days. Adekunle began to wonder, what if I had lived a little for myself? He remembered friends who joined clubs, played ayo under mango trees, and still had company in old age. He remembered a young lecturer, Bisi, who once admired his work. He ignored her out of discipline. Now he wondered what laughter might have sounded like if he had let it in. He wasn't bitter, he was curious. The faithful man began to question his faithfulness. Was goodness supposed to hurt this much? The questions followed him like shadows, but the answers never spoke. Only the night birds knew his prayers. One evening, as rain danced on the zinc roof, a knock came. It was Ireti, a widow from 2 houses away. "Baba Kunle, I brought pepper soup," she said softly. He hesitated, then invited her in. For the first time in years, laughter touched his walls again. They spoke of old music, village festivals, and the foolishness of youth. Soon, her visits became frequent. To clean, to chat, to share stories of lost spouses. The town whispered, but Adekunle didn't care. In her company, he found something even love had forgotten to give: companionship. She never tried to replace Abike. She simply filled the silence, and sometimes that was enough. 3 years after Abike left, an email arrived. Subject line: "Daddy, you're invited." It was Sadi, her wedding in London. The family wanted him to attend, but the ticket price alone was his monthly pension. He smiled, replying, "I am too old for cold weather." They sent photos later. Abike, radiant beside her daughter, dancing with grandchildren he'd never met. He looked at her frozen smile on the screen and whispered, "So this is what home looks like now." Then he closed the laptop gently, like closing a chapter he would never rewrite. Some endings he knew must be accepted, not because they are fair, but because fighting them steals the peace that's left. Loneliness began to show its fangs. One morning, while sweeping the veranda, Adekunle felt a sharp pain in his chest. He sat, breathing slowly. Ireti found him and rushed him to the local clinic. The doctor, a young man half his age, said kindly, "You need rest and company." He smiled faintly. "Company, doctor, that's the only medicine I can't buy." In the ward, he watched the ceiling fan spin like time. No calls came from abroad that week. No, "How are you, Dad?" Just forwarded prayers on WhatsApp. And in that silence, he began to understand. Love without presence is like soup without salt, full but tasteless. When he returned home, Adekunle wrote a long letter. He thanked Abike for the years they shared, told the children not to feel guilty, and urged them to live fully. He wrote, "Don't be perfect, be balanced, because perfection is lonely." He sealed it, placed it in his Bible, and wrote on the envelope, "To be opened when I am gone." That night, he sat outside under the stars. The crickets sang again, just as they did when life was new. He whispered, "I have done my best. Let peace find me now." A single tear rolled down, not of pain, but of release. The final surrender of a heart that had carried too much hope for too long. When Ireti came by in the morning, the stew on the fire had burnt. Adekunle was still in his chair, eyes closed, Bible on his lap. The letter lay beside him. She wept quietly, then covered him with his favorite wrapper. The news spread, "Professor Adekunle has gone." The town mourned him deeply. Even the school children marched in silence, holding placards that read, "Good men deserve more time." Abike flew down for the burial, her hair silver now. She wept, not just for his death, but for the years she had forgotten him alive. At the graveside, she whispered, "You are my best friend. I just forgot how to come home." The wind carried her words into the rustling palms. Forgiveness, too late, but still real. As the sun dipped beyond the hills of Ilesami, the storyteller's voice returned. May good men never be forgotten. May those who plant love not harvest loneliness. May those who stay faithful find companionship that stays faithful too. The townsfolk built a small library in his name, the Adekunle Center for Learning and Love. On its walls, they inscribed his final words: "Being good is not enough. Be kind to yourself too." And so, the tale of the lonely end of a good man became a lesson whispered across generations. Because loyalty is beautiful, but loneliness, when love forgets to return home, is the most silent curse of all.